Hey card makers, I'm Trisha Morris at Club Scrap with the Tropicale Card Kit Assembly Workshop. I'm really excited about the set of cards I'm about to share with you. We're going to learn a lot along the way that you can carry further into your crafting adventures. For now, I'm going to set aside everything that came in the kit except the papers and the sheet of transparency film. So I'll just slide all that out of the way. Well, those are under the film here. Okay, so now I have all the papers that we included in that kit, and I'm just going to hold them vertically so I can see them easily from the top. And let's go ahead and sort these in the order that we're going to trim all of this paper, because all of it has to be trimmed. We are going to begin with one sheet of orange, and then next a teal. So now with the teal, you just have to make sure you have that and not the blue. So the teal has a lot more green in it. Grab one of those. And then one blue. So this is one of each so far. And then one of the lime. Or green, I guess we called it green. Next, we're going to find the white. And then another orange. Another blue. And then another green. Then one of the prints. And then the last piece of teal that you have, followed by the other print. Now notice I'm putting those prints upside down, so when we flip this pile over, it'll be right side up. Next, we need the cut apart that has the frames on it, the 3 frames, and then the cut apart that has the black frame. And then finally, we're going to trim that transparency film. So that'll be the last thing on the pile. Let's just flip everything back over so that that orange is right on top. Okay, I have my instructions all printed out, and if you have the kit, you have access to the instructions as well, so you can download, and printing them is optional. We're going to start out with the orange sheet of paper and just hold it by an edge to determine the grain direction of that paper. Make sure that the way it goes into the trimmer is so that the paper will dip easily from top to bottom when you hold it by an edge. I'm going to repeat that same test with the teal. Now if I hold it by this edge, it's very stiff. And if I hold it by this edge, it's much more flexible. So we'll stack them together in that way. Oh, and I'm also going to take my accordion pocket file and just pop it underneath my trimmer base here so that I can sort all of the elements that we trim into one of 4 pockets, A, B, C, and D. So A, B, C will be the 3 card styles, and then D will be anything we didn't use at the time that we can incorporate later into our cards. Okay, stack them neatly together. And let's just dive right in. You don't have to trim both of these at the same time if you don't feel comfortable. And our first cut's at 11.5. Make sure you stabilize on that clear bar before every cut. Try to remember to remind you. And then trim at 7. That'll just become a habit over time. Then rotate the 7x12 and we'll trim at 10. Then you can set aside these 2 larger pieces to be scored. Next, take the narrow strip here. This is the 2x7, and we'll trim horizontally on all the even numbers. So that's going to be 6, 4, and 2. Now gather up the squares that you made. Those are going to go in pocket C. And then these 2 pieces are scraps, and they're so small, I'm just going to pitch them. Next, you've got 2 larger pieces to the right of your trimmer. Let's place them in there horizontally. We're going to cut at 5.5, and then rotate and cut at 3 3/4. So this taller, skinnier mat goes in pocket B. We created some scraps that we'll put in pocket D. The larger panels go in C. And then we're going to keep these long strips as well. I ended up using a lot of those in my inner card embellishing. Then let's repeat that whole process. Check the grain direction on the blue. This is a little bit heavier stock, and make sure it dips top to bottom. And then with the green as well. That corresponds with the arrow, if you're wondering how you know this. The arrow on the diagram indicates which way the paper needs to dip most easily. Okay, let's trim again now at 11.5. 7, rotate, and 10. These 2 pieces are scored, so I'll set them aside and not file them quite yet. And then trim this strip horizontally on the even numbers. 6, 4, 2. Go ahead and file in pocket C, all of the little squares. And then this can go in the garbage. And then the next strip we'll trim at 5.5 with a rotation right after that. So 5.5, rotate 3 3/4. Pocket B with the others, pocket C with the others, and then all these skinny little strips go in pocket D. Now, if you're brand new and I'm going way too fast for you, go ahead and adjust your playback speed. Just click the gear button, that's settings button, and change the playback speed to like 0.75 would probably be more ideal. For this next piece, I'm taking this gorgeous ivory linen, checking to make sure it dips top to bottom. And then with the orange as well, we'll do 2 at a time. Got to do this with a total of 4 sheets. So our first cut here is going to be at 11 3/4 and 6 1/4. Rotate. We'll cut at 11 and 9. Again, the larger pair gets scored. This rectangle, we're going to trim on the even numbers. 6, 4, 2. That's easy. Okay, now guess where these all go? Pocket C with the others. And we did create some really tiny little scraps this time. And then this can go, let's see, pocket D. So anything with an X on it, I usually throw in pocket D. And then I'll grab this next strip. Now you're going to have to bear with me. We're going to be doing some measurements that you might not be as comfortable with on the 1/8 inch segments. So I'll just try to walk you through carefully. Our first cut will be at 11 1/4. So you can do that one just fine. 11 1/4. Okay, now 9 1/8. So I find a 9, I go to the left to make the measurement larger. 1/8 is just halfway between 9 and 9 1/4. That's 9 1/8. Then 7, 4 7/8. Now 7/8 again, find the 4, go to the left until you're halfway between 4 3/4 and 5. Okay, now this large piece will be scored. Then if you pick up all the rest of the panels that you made, there should be a series of 3 sets of panels that are the same size. Those are going to go in pocket A. And then these super thin ones you can throw in D. Let's repeat that whole process now with the blue and the green. Grain, of course, goes top to bottom for both pieces. And our first cut is once again at 11 3/4. And then 6 1/4 with a rotation at 11 and 9. We'll set this aside to be scored. And then once again, we're going to cut it 6, 4, and 2. Those are the even numbers. 6, 4, 2. Just make a bunch of squares. All the squares, I know you know by now, go in C. And we have, let's see, these really little scraps. You can pitch those. And the other 2 larger scraps can go in D. And then we're going to trim some more. No, I've noticed that I've neglected to tell you that the skinny strips from the previous and the ones we have left over here now, so I don't forget later, can all go in D. And yes, I did use quite a bit of them, again, embellishing the inside of the card. Now we're going to repeat those weird measurements, 11 1/4, 9 1/8, 7, and 4 7/8. This piece gets scored. Pick up all the rest. The larger panel sets go in A, and then these little guys D. Let's grab the print. Grain doesn't matter because we won't be folding this paper, and the teal get trimmed at the same time. Now when I'm trimming a print, it tends to get a little slippery on the print side, so I'm just going to put the print on top so I don't have to worry about that happening. And we'll cut at 10 1/2 and 5 1/4. Again, this is the print and the teal. Now rotate the 5 1/4 by 12. We're going to go 10 7/8, 9 3/4, 8 5/8. Now that's halfway between 8 1/2 and 8 3/4. You're going to find 8 5/8. 7 1/2, 5 5/8, 3 3/4. Bear with me. And 1 7/8. Now what happened here is we made a series of panels in 2 different sizes and 0 scraps, which when you think about all those measurements, it's kind of crazy. It was a real mind bender to figure this out. They're all going to go in pocket A. So both panels, you know, both sets of panels in those 2 different sizes. And guess what? We get to do that all one more time because, you know, practice makes perfect. So if you didn't really know your eighths, you're going to. All right, let's begin at 10 7/8 again. 9 3/4, 8 5/8, 8 5/8, 7 1/2, 5 5/8, 3 3/4, 1 7/8. It's gonna be so worth it, I promise. Okay, now again, I've made some sets of panels here. All right, so you have the larger ones and the skinnier ones all going together in pocket A, and we have this nice gorgeous long strip going into pocket D. You have one more of these prints to trim, and we're going to start at 10 1/4. Grain direction doesn't matter, it won't be folded. 10 1/4, 8 1/2, 4 1/4. Now, stack the piece you just created and the one right next to it, which should be the same size. We're going to trim these together at 6. That's nice and easy. And you can place both of these in pocket B. Then you have these other strips. If you want, you can trim them at the same time as long as you stabilize very carefully. Our first cut's at 10 1/2. And then 8 3/4. You can move those 10 1/2 pieces out of the way. Those are going to be scraps. 8 3/4. And then 7, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, and 1 3/4. That's getting tiny to do these double here, but we'll make it work. 1 3/4. Okay, we made a bunch of squares, and as a reminder, again, the first 2 little pieces that fell off the edge of the trimmer are not quite square, so those we're not going to use. You can put those in D or in your circular file, but the squares are going to go in pocket C with all the other squares we've been creating along the way. And all that's left now is our sheets of cut-aparts. I'm going to align the plus sign in the upper corner of a cut-apart, any corner, with the edge of my trimming blade, and then remove this edge and work my way all the way around the sheet. So I can begin this process with a really good-looking 12 by 12. And those first cuts off the end, you know, if they're a little shy of the mark, you can go back and fix those. The more you trim off the end, the better you're going to be able to see what you're doing with the edge of the blade. You can dispose of all the little scraps you created, and we're going to place this in the trimmer so that wishing you all you are wishing for is on the upper right here. And let's begin at 10 inches, and then 5 1/4, rotation, 10 1/2, making sure the skinny piece is on the far right, and then 7 and 3 1/2. Gather up the frames. There are 3 of them. Those go in pocket B. And then this can go in D for decorating it in different ways. Okay, now for this strip, this is going to be pretty easy. You're just going to trim on all the even numbers, which I really like. So it's going to be 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. You can stack up all of these pieces and put them all in pocket A. And then the same, now we're going to take this last piece, make sure the black toucan is on the right. We'll trim at 9.5 and 4 3/4. These two pieces also go in pocket A, and Mr. Toucan can go in D. Now we need to remove the perimeter from this sheet as well. So follow the same steps to just line up those hash marks with the edge of your blade and cut off the ends. Okay, this should go back into the trimmer now with "Here is your card" in the upper right corner, and we'll trim at 10 1/4, 8.5, and 3.5. I'll give this a rotation. We'll cut at 10.5, 8 3/4, 7, 5 1/4. All right, this frame piece goes in B with the others. Now, careful here. We've got 3 sentiments: animal puns, celebrate, shake it. They're all going to go in pocket B. And then you'll need to take this last one and just trim it horizontally at 3 1/4. The reason this happened is because of the way the paper cut aparts ended up working out. It just was a necessary trim. That goes in B with the others like it. And then I'm going to take this next strip, Good Times, should be on the right. And that's another trim at 10.5, 9, 7.5, 6, 4.5, 3. All right, take the 3, rotate, and 2.5. Okay, a bunch of pieces to file there. These two are innies for the set C cards. And then you've got all of these narrow ones. Okay, there's 2 of them. In 365 Days and A Beautiful Soul. Both of those go in pocket C. Then all the rest of these 4 remaining go in B. Now we have these 2 strips. They both get trimmed the same way. I'm just going to do one at a time so it can be extra accurate. This is just like the squares we trimmed earlier from the plain colors. Or a print, actually. It was a print. So 10.5. And then I'm going to scoot that first piece out of the way. And then we're going to go 8 3/4, 7, 5 1/4, 3.5, 1 3/4. And all of these squares, I guess we're your pocket C. And then that little guy we pulled aside, D. We're going to repeat that. So again, the 10.5 is our first cut. Now I'm just doing this using subtraction to make a 1 3/4 inch square. For me, it's easier. And you can also eyeball and look at when the blade is right between the art. That puts me at 8 3/4. Subtract 1 1/4 and I get 7. Subtract 1 1/4 and I get 5 1/4. And if you're not real comfortable with math like that, it's okay. 3.5 and then 1 3/4. The best way to get familiar with it is just keep making cards with this method and you'll get more and more efficient at it. I did have a member comment on one of my videos that said, I used to just be so irritated by this portion of the workshop. Now it's one of my favorites. And because they're familiar with it and used to it more and understand the outcome is just such awesome efficiency. All right, these go in C. And then again, the little image for D, you can use that as an option. I do have a little scrap here. One little scrap. That's pretty much it from that entire sheet. Okay, now one last thing is the transparency film. We're going to place this vertically in the trimmer and we'll cut at 6.5 and 3 1/4. Then stack the 2 pieces together and trim at 10 and 5. So slide that piece down to 5. And this all will go in pocket B. Now we're finished trimming and we can just enjoy the creative process. You do have some little scraps. I don't think it would be worth saving those unless you can think something you want to do. We'll set aside the trimmer. I'm going to swap that out for my score pal. So just make sure you set this on its side so it doesn't fall over onto the floor or something. I'm going to tackle the scoring of all of these pieces we set aside in the same order they landed, basically. So I'm going to begin with this first piece, and I gotta be honest with you, when I scored this the last time I made these card samples, I did it in the wrong direction. So just be really careful. Make sure that the scoring edge, or that the edge that's at the top, is at 4 7/8 and at 5 5.5 here. We want to score these vertically, okay? So just begin. I'm going to take one of them, and my first score line's at 1/2 inch, so that's kind of a little bit of a awkward position there, but 1/2 inch, and then 1 1/4, 2, 2 3/4. Okay, I'm gonna repeat that. So 1/2 inch, 1 1/4, 2, 2 3/4. Now I'm gonna reach back and find the other two that are just like it, kind of sandwiched in between. Again, making sure your 5 1/2 reading is here. 1/2 inch, 1 1/4, 2, 2 3/4. This one has a texture to it on the white, so just make sure the texture is facing up. 1/2 inch, 1 1/4, 2, 2 3/4. All right, all of this is going to go in that really special pinwheel card we're going to make in set A. So I'll put that in pocket A. Now, I've got these other ones to score. I'm going to put it in horizontally, so reading is at 9 here. And then we'll just score these in half at 4 1/2. This is going to be the base for all of our shaker cards. 4 1/2. And then make sure the texture is up. 4 1/2. All of these go in pocket B. Lastly, you should have the 10-inch side on the scoring edge, on the horizontal that is, and score at 5. So we're just scoring these in half again to make an A7 base, which is 5 by 7. Score at 5 and 5. Okay, all of these go in pocket C. I'm going to set aside my score palette, and now we're ready to assemble one each of each card style. Next, take everything out of pocket A, and you'll want to organize all the pieces you removed by size. So you have the larger card bases, you have some larger panels, some medium-sized panels, and then some smaller panels, right? Okay, so we're going to start out by distributing the larger panels into the order we're going to assemble the cards. So we're going to start with white, and then orange, then green, and blue. Okay, next, the largest panels that we have, we're going to distribute these to the cards that they match. So all the green panels go with the green card, and so on. Yours will be sifted because we trimmed 2 sheets of paper at the same time. So those larger printed panels, I want those to go on the bottom cards. And then the teal panels, I want them to go on the top. So I'm going to go print, print. I got my teal. So four prints, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, these are going to be sifted kind of every other because of the way we trim them. Now I want the opposite to go, so I want 4 skinny panels that are printed here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll put the teal ones here. More print here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 teal here. So this way all of the colors are distributed to all the cards. It's kind of cool. All right, now we've got one little bird can't conquer the world. Sounds kind of like a sad little sentiment. One little bird can't conquer the world, but 2 can. All right, you bring color to my life. Thank you for everything, and how perfect with that beautiful, colorful card. These both get wishing you all you're wishing for, and then one will be turn your face to the sun, and the other will be thinking of you. So Now what we're going to do is, this is card 4, 3, and 2. I'm going to stack those together. It's like I'm playing a fun little card game. Literal. And we're going to make this one together. So I'll leave my blue cutting mat here so you can see better with my white table. And here we have all of our score lines, and we need to fold on the score lines so that the bump of the score will be buried on the inside of the fold. And for now I'm just using my fingertip to make the crease. And I'm also making sure that when I bring the card forward here, when I'm folding, that the edges align before I make the crease. I never really trust a score line, okay? Okay, now let's do this. Let's count the number of scores that we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'm gonna do is fold along the first score line to create this 1/2-inch flap. And I'll take my bookbinding glue, which is in the needle tip applicator. This is kind of how I always do this. And I'm going to fold on the third line. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to fold on the third line. So I bring that glued area onto the back wall of the card base. This is going to create a cube shape with 3. You got your like 1, 2, 3 open sides, and then this one has that little tab on the back attaching it to the back wall of the card. Hope that made sense. Again, we folded over on the first score, applied the glue, then folded over on the third score so that we can fold flat and then just turn it into a cube shape. That's what's going to start our pinwheel. We already have 1 pin on the wheel, okay? So now I'm going to take it so that this wider, exposed, smooth area is on the right. And I'm going to flatten this and find my other panels here. I got 3 more. So I'm going to apply glue to this center scored area here. And now I'm going to lay this piece right next to that glued area and then fold so that the glued area lands on that little panel. We'll let that bond for just a second. So now I have adhered the panel to the side of the cube. I need to repeat that right here. So I'm going to apply glue to this. I can do that when it's flat, which is super nice. If this is the center scored area, again, if you're trying to keep track. Now I'm going to grab my next wing of my pinwheel and put it kind of in that crease. Fold and then fold onto it so that it bonds. You never want it to go past the crease. If this panel goes past the crease, the card won't function properly. It won't lay nice and flat. Look at that. All I need is 1 more piece glued now to this 3/4 inch scored area, which is again in the center. And I pick it up, put that right in there so I can fold flat on top of it and burnish. Works like a charm. So now I have my pinwheel base all built and ready to go. At this point, you can flatten the card and then you'll be able to see right away what goes where. You're going to have these larger teal panels going into the teal area, and then the narrower printed panels should fit perfectly there. So the way I do that is I'm going to lay these 4 out plain side up and grab my tape gun, and then I can just apply the adhesive, and all I need to do is just rotate the card and add these panels to each one. Now you can do this with the bookbinding glue as well, and I have a confession. I made all of these cards at home, and when I was working on them, this entire card set, I had forgotten my ATG gun at the office. But I did have my bookbinding glue in the needle tip applicator, and I made all 12 of the cards in this set with my glue. Every single panel was glued on. So now I have this pretty panel on each side. Now when I line these up, this is a time saver for you. Lay them horizontally. Remember, the skinny ones I did vertically, these I do horizontally, and then I can just distribute all at once. So if you're making a lot of these cards, this is the way. I've got each end in good shape there. So let's see, what's a good way to see this? Then I can apply these panels to every flap of my pinwheel. Okay, so now that's nicely decorated. Now the last step is to do a little decor. So on this one, I'm going to take some ribbon and make a basic bow. You can either wrap around or just make the basic bow with the 2 bunny ears, which you then crisscross. I love this really beautiful satiny ribbon. Just tie that and pull your tails until you're happy. And then just trim them to the appropriate length. I like to use a glue line for these. And then we can just kind of add that to the top. That'll be really sweet. So any kind of bow there is going to be fine. Now, as you're working with this, make sure the wide panel is going to be on your right so that this can extend past the edge and the card will still fit in the envelope. If you try to do it the other way around, you won't be able to open it. Okay, so you have to just make sure you got a narrow strip on the left here. When you add your adhesive, just do so on the left edge and keeping this area free, or again, you'll make a postcard. So it's almost like centered onto the card, and you can center it. Notice how beautifully it centers within this area here. This still extends beyond the edge, and it looks great, and it functions. Now flip the card over, and then this can go right into this spot. I'll once again add my adhesive just to the left edge of the back, center it, and then we found these really, really cool little charms. I'm going to take some of my bookbinding glue, and you can add this anywhere you like. Maybe put it here, wherever your creative spirit leads you. I did that last because I do like to, anything glued, I like to set it aside and cure completely. So such a fun card, right? I mean, it's really, really neat. Lays flat, stands up for display. So again, that's a pinwheel card. This is my take on it, where I've made a nice efficient formula for it. And you have other sides you can sign and decorate as well. Now this is the one we made together, and then here's another one. Notice I brought the ribbon and the charm. I just did a single tie around the panel for this one. Here I did a tie on. Love that. Love all these colors together too. It's such a fun set. Thinking of you. So nice. Okay, now I'm going to take my 4 samples and then my finished card, set everything aside, and let's move on to card set B. First, empty the pocket entirely, and then sort everything by size. I'll start by folding the 5x7 card bases in half on the score line, and you can use a bone folder to crisp up that crease if you'd like. Otherwise, just crease with your finger. Simply make sure that you're always burying the bump on the inside of the fold. And I know I'm like a broken record when it comes to that. There we go. Now let's distribute these folded card bases in the order we'll sort of plan for them. So let's put the blue on the upper left corner, and then green, white, and orange. Each one is lucky enough to receive a nice, big, beautiful print. Isn't that pretty? Now we can alternate more colors into the mix. Well, let's take an orange, a blue, teal, and green. Then we have our framed sentiments. These look nothing like my finished cards, but you'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to take the blue one, and then the teal, the green, and the black. Let's take a piece of transparency film and distribute for each one. And then we've got, for these smaller sentiments, we've got animal puns, celebrate, shake it, and shake it. And then we'll have 2 can play that game. And then the best is yet to come. We'll do the teal good times there and the blue good times here. Okay, so once again, the routine is they all get assembled in the same way. So that includes these cards. And let's do this one together. Now, I know some of you aren't a huge fan of using a craft knife and cutting mat. That's why we've provided art on this base so that the shaker card assembly option is completely unnecessary. So let me just quick show you. You've got your folded card base, your panel, another panel, the framed art, and a sentiment that fits on the inside. So you could literally layer this all in. Maybe you could do a foam adhesive. You could remove the white so you could see a little bit more of this. Either way, this card is going to assemble beautifully without making it a shaker card. So that's not a problem if you're not comfortable with this process. Let me show you how easy it can be though. I'm going to take my craft knife, cutting mat, and my grid ruler. And I'll line up my, my ruler right on that black line that's on the cut apart here. Notice I'm covering the area that I plan to keep. That way if my craft knife accidentally goes off course, I'm not going to damage my art project. Okay, then I'll just rotate. Notice I'm right-handed, so I always want my left hand pushing down on the ruler and my right hand in a comfortable top to down position on the craft knife while I can press firmly. Sometimes I see people using their craft knives like this and I'm like, no. It's not as reliable that way or as safe. So we always want to be safe and we want those cuts to work and cut clean through. And notice I'm just rotating each time. All right, now I have a beautiful frame trimmed out and I can put my craft knife away for now. If you were making all 4 cards, of course, I would do all of that framing out at once. Okay, now the order of assembly here is kind of important, so just bear with me. I'm going to temporarily place this centered onto the orange panel, and I'm going to grab the animal puns. This is the inner sentiment, and I'm going to put some adhesive on the back of it. Don't forget to do this step. And again, make sure this is centered, but not adhered. Then I'll center this piece into the opening. And notice it gets framed up perfectly, right? Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to flip this over, and I'll apply adhesive carefully to the back of this frame. Now you could use bookbinding glue for this step as well, but I just found it doesn't love the combination of the acetate as much as the ATG style. I'm gonna make sure it's clear and clean, and I'll center the acetate over the adhered area. So now I have a frame that can contain whatever goods I put inside my shaker card. Okay, next, I'm going to take some foam tape strips. These need to come out of your stash. I did not include them in your kit. Most people do have this as a standard item in their craft supply. If you don't, I picked mine up very inexpensively from, believe it, I just got it at Amazon. I got it in black and white. Now I'm taking off each section. I'm going near the edge, but avoiding about the last 1/4 inch of the edge, because remember, this has to reveal and I don't want any tape in my sight line there. So I'm just making sure I make a solid perimeter of tape. When you get to the 3rd side, again, just make sure you seal everything off so that nothing can sneak out. And then that last piece comes off the edge there. Okay, now, if I want to, I could get a little start on each section's backing removal. That tends to be the thing that causes the ruckus that challenges everything about making a shaker. So each piece has been started. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, what I did when I made mine, again, I made all 4 at the same time. So I had my shaker confetti that is included in the kit, and I just distributed it equally among the 4 cards. But I'm going to go for approximately 1/4 of what's in this bag. I'll take a wild guess. It's a pretty generous amount, right? I still have plenty for 3 more cards. And now I can carefully remove the backing from this panel. And getting it started before you sprinkle is a good idea, but leaving the back intact while you sprinkle, also a good idea. Don't ask me how I know this. Okay, so now my panel, I can visually center this and bond it with the tape that I have here. Isn't that great? Now, you can shake things up. Okay, next I'm going to take some of this really fun checked ribbon, stretch it across the printed panel so it extends past it just a little bit. I found I had plenty of ribbon for even these generous distributions here. And just kind of across the bottom here. Bring it around to the back and secure with tape or washi tape. And then I'll add some adhesive and attach that to my folded card base, making sure the ribbon's at the bottom. Okay, so now I can apply adhesive to the back of my shaker portion of the panel. I'm gonna just be a little bit more casual and tilt this. To avoid a tangent, I wanna just make sure that the corners aren't touching the edge of anything. Okay, that's kind of ideal. Then, because the card is already kind of on the larger side, I'm gonna make another basic bow out of my checked ribbon. And then I'll add a glue line and just place it on the bottom corner of the card. Isn't that fun? So now for the inside. What's nice is that you have this extra piece that we removed from the frame. And I'm just going to reach in my little bin from Pocket D, and I have this little strip of green. I believe this is like a 1/2 inch wide. I'm going to cut a little chevron into it. Nice. So I'll put adhesive on this and place it with the straight edge on the left edge of the card. And then I can add my removed frame. Now, if you didn't do shaker, this will be on the outside of your card, right? And then we can add the toucan, play that game here, and still plenty of room to write your sentiment. Wow, super fun card. I absolutely love how all of this planning worked out in our favor. And let's take a look at the other ones in the set. They're equally as fun. We've got our Celebrate here. The inside, again, I found a scrap that matched the width and just ran it across all the way. Put the inner art right there. Here we have the Shake It, and kind of funny, a little bit of sarcasm, good times. All right, really, shake it. And then here we have the other Shake It with the same sentiment on the inside. You can see how we're bringing all that color into the inside of the card. So fun. Let's move on to set C. Take everything out of the pocket, sort it by size. I went ahead and folded each card base in half to make my 5x7 card. So if you haven't done that already, do that now. And then let's distribute our colors. So I'm going to go with teal, green, orange, and blue. Okay, then each one gets a nesting panel. So we will start with orange, teal, blue, and green to distribute the color. Now I've got a bunch of leafed in various colors here, so bear with me. We're gonna go green on this one and blue up here. So it's just kind of a matter of dealing them out. And then you gotta find the other pile here. So green, blue, green, blue, green, blue. Then on the other side, we will do orange, teal, orange, white, orange, white, orange, teal, orange, white, orange, teal. So you can see that because of the way we trim the paper, one card has to have the alternating colors, which is just fine. All the colors kind of incorporate and create some nice attractive looks here. Now, I'm going to distribute a printed square that should nest onto the top, center, and then top, upper left, lower center, top right, upper left, lower center, top right. Okay, there we go. All right, now we just have the sentiments to distribute. So a little birdie told me, and we'll keep maybe our parakeet or our little, what is that, parrot. Here I got a toucan over here along with aloha. Here's the parakeet. And then I've got a leaf here. It doesn't matter. Here is your card, that pretty flower, a little palm frond, and then with sincere sympathy. We even got a sympathy. You know, I usually need one of those pretty regularly, unfortunately. Now each one is going to get, let's see, the inner sentiment. Here is your card. In 365 days, you'll get another one. And I love this quote. And, you know, I know it's sort of a happy colors, but with sympathy, a beautiful soul is never forgotten. A little birdie told me it's your birthday, and then rest and relax. You deserve it. Each card will also get one of these beautiful laser cuts. And you can imagine the assembly on this is incredibly simple. So let's just break it down step by step. I'm going to start out with a piece of this beautiful ribbon. I do have a scissors dedicated to ribbons so that I don't dull them on paper. And I just take a piece and fold it in half. And I have a mini stapler that I use just from an office supply store. It's easy to find the refills for it too. I'll add that. Now, one of the things I wasn't paying attention to when I was at home making my cards with my glue was that I could have done 2 vertical and 2 horizontal. Sometimes I like to mix them up directionally. I didn't do that. It doesn't matter, not really, because you're not sending one person the same card, so nobody knows you just made 4 exclusively horizontal cards. Even in my design process, I try to vary the direction, or sometimes the card will dictate. Like all of the pinwheel cards, those were all vertical for obvious reasons. Now I'm nesting each square onto its companion square. And that only takes a second. Next, you can sort of remove the squares, and I'm just going to flip them all over, top to bottom. And then it would be efficient to apply your adhesive to all of the squares at the same time. Now, maybe you want to pop dot these. That would be fine too. So the reveal is going to be about 1/8 of an inch. And if you want to start and do the outer corners first, if you want, you can use a grid ruler to help you with all the alignment there and the spacing. It's across the center because we're doing 3 across and 2 from top to bottom. The spacing gets a little tighter in the center, so just be aware of that. Okay, and then once this is assembled, just check your opening direction of your card base, and the front of your card is complete. How's that for easy and fun? Okay, now when you open it, you've got all kinds of options as far as what you want to put inside. You've got your sentiment, and what I recommend is a little bit of anchoring. So I'm going to trim these pieces to 7 inches wide. And then I'll start with just some glue on this piece. I think in my other card I did the 1/4 inch. And because on a 7-inch card like this, I'm going to tend to go downhill. I'll just use a ruler to make sure it's nice and level. If you haven't seen that trick before, it's an important one in my arsenal. Lay that on top. And we can add, I'll do it this way. On my previous card, I put this down first. Little bookbinding glue on the detailed areas here. Don't have to worry about any glue being visible. Let me grab the flowers there, and then watch where I lay this. And the inside of my card is complete and looking fabulous. I love it. Okay, so this is the one that I was following along. I did tuck that behind there. And here we have the green one with the toucan and aloha. Rest and relax, you deserve it. Could be a goodwill, could be a birthday, could be a retirement. You get the idea. Here's our sympathy. That is so pretty. And then finally, here is your card. In 365 days, Lord willing, you'll get another one. So that is this beautiful set of the Tropicale cards, set C. I hope you had a lot of fun assembling these. Did you learn something new today? Maybe the pinwheel card, maybe that was the first time, or maybe you learn some fun little shortcuts or assembly tips along the way. That's always my goal, is no matter how advanced you are or if you're a beginner, you can follow along easily step by step and always learn something new. Now, if you like this Tropicale collection, or if you like this whole way of making cards and you're not yet a Club Scrap member, I invite you to join us. We'd love to have you. You can always shop, but if you're a member, you always save. And then if you like this theme, join me over at the Tropicale Page Kit Assembly Workshop. We're gonna have a good time over there making 8 beautiful pages together. So I'll see you in class soon. Have a good one.